everyone, I'm Liz Hunt.
And I'm Chelsea Poppins.
And this is the Agency Rocket Show, where we talk about the chaos of running
a creative agency.
A creative agency.
I thought we were going to nail it on the head that time, Liz.
No, we're not harmonizing.
Creative agency.
Oh my gosh.
I'm ready for it.
There's no jingle here. So, what are we doing today, Chelsea?
Yeah, so we're still in our branding series. Today it is how to defend your creative work. And so this is going to be a fun one. Like, I know in our time of DayCloud, we've always had moments where we had to defend why we did what we did. And I think it's key. I love that DayCloud has our designers in those meetings, because larger agencies don't always have designers in their room to kind of give the why, give the heart of why they did some things. And so, Liz, do you want to kick us off of anything that comes to mind of a time where we had to defend our art or something to a client?
Yeah. So, whenever we're talking about defending our artwork, my favorite way to do this is to, one, anticipate as much as possible, like plan for this as much as possible. And so really what I like to do most often is come with my argument already in play. And so what we do at DayCloud at the firm is we come with all of our reasoning built into our presentation. This is why we have it set up this way. And this is the messaging that we have in play. We have this icon built this way. And here's what this means. And here's why we have it meaning this thing. And we hearken back to our discovery workshop and pointing back to what the client said in the discovery workshop. We try to build a narrative in our brand presentation or stylescape presentation from the beginning of here are the things that you said, and we drop those little pinpoints throughout the presentation in the actual narrative of what we're sharing, so that there's less defensive arguments that we have to have at the end of the presentation. So I guess my defending of artwork is actually going on the proactive instead of having to be reactive. That's really my preference when it comes to this kind of stuff, is to explain it all at the upfront. To me, that works the best because, one, it doesn't feel like you have to be argumentative, or it doesn't feel like any sort of contentious type of play. I think a lot of times if you do it this way too, the client will listen more than, when you have to wait to the end and the client brings up their critique or their feedback or whatever, and then you have to give feedback to their feedback. I think they are less likely to listen at that point. And so that is really where I always like to start, is tell the narrative, tell the story, and then also make sure that you are really dropping in specifically what the client said from the discovery meeting. Point out okay, in our interactive mood board, these are the things that you said you liked. And here's where we took that and brought it in to the concept that we have right here. Do you see that? And pointing out those things. And so that's what I really like to do, is not defend my art, but be proactive about, this is where we took what you said and representing it back to you.
Yeah. I love that answer, Liz. You get proactive about your approach to how we're presenting even just our stylescapes and reflecting back on discovery meetings, because there's that mild, medium, spicy, and you're interacting with our designers in order to create those stylescapes and constantly thinking about the why we're doing everything that we're doing. And the spicy is supposed to push boundaries, and not everybody likes the spicy concept. So I can see how you go into it thinking the spicy isn't going to be everybody's cup of tea, but I do have to be able to defend. Defend seems like such a aggressive word, but it is just back the why of, in this spicy version, we understand this is the spicy version. So when we're talking to the client, we're we don't know if you'll like this, but this is meant to push the boundaries of what you think you want or possibly don't know what you want. And this is why. So like, I love that because you're the nurturer of our designers, especially like if we have some young designers that think of everything,
I'm sorry. Hang on. Did you just call me a nurturer?
I know I did. You're the developer of our designers, but you're the mother hen of them.
I mean, okay, but like that's super weird language to call me.
Oh my gosh, I could have said much worse.
Well, like, I'm just saying,
Liz is like, I'm not a nurturer.
I'm like the least nurturer person you know. Like,
no, but you are supplying our designers with the things that they need in order to grow. So like, that's how I attack it from a nurturing perspective.
That's more like a coach. I'm just saying,
fine, whatever language you want to use.
I'm just saying, calling me a nurturer, like what?
I feel like coach is so disingenuous or disengaged from the act of what you do because business, DayCloud is your baby, our baby. And the people involved in it, we care about them as people, as employees, and how they're growing professionally. And design is so close to the heart. And I think you understand this because you are a designer, is that every designer thinks of whatever they create as their baby. And it's hard to disengage from that. And so as you're developing our designers, you're framing their mentality to not take every single thing personally. And you're preparing them for client meetings to be able to back their work. Even if they're young, we might not even ask them to say anything. But seeing how you proactively defend their work, I think is huge in that development process.
Yeah. I just...
You're a nurturer.
I am not a nurturer. Oh my God.
I think we're going to have to dig into some trauma of why you hate that word so much.
I just don't like it because it's used for women so much, and that just drives me nuts.
If you're a male, I'd say the same thing.
No, you wouldn't.
I would say that if you were Ryan sitting in front of me, I'm like, you are nurturing the people around you in order to help build them up.
You would say you're developing them. Whatever. I'm inspiring our designers to do what they do best every day. Hopefully.
Ignore my sexist language.
Yes. I'm sorry. I just don't think of myself as a nurturer. And yes.
I guess anyway. I got a question that's a little reframing perspective.
Okay.
When you're developing our designers in order for them to prepare them for these meetings, do they typically already have a defense in mind? Do they have a why of why they did things? Like, is it a running trend for them not to really even think about that at first?
No, of course we have reasons for why we create design. Because design is not just art. That is the whole... Chelsea, I can't believe you just asked me that.
I just meant you as the coach when you talk to our young designers. In that conversation between you and them, do they already have that prepared when they talk to you? Before,
of course.
And that's before the actual clients. I'm not saying they're ignorant, but I do think young minds don't always have that defense prepared.
Here's the thing. What you're asking is what the difference between art and design is. And design is creating something that is purposeful, that is for a specific intention. Art is something that comes just out of an expression of you, right? It is like your feelings in a visual communication way. Design is something that is visually communicated with intention, like with the intention of representing something. And so, yes, everything that a designer creates has a why. It has to have a why, or it wouldn't be design. It would be art, right? And so every designer is creating something to send a message or to communicate something or to relay some sort of visual communication, right? And so, yes, there's a why for every type of icon, brand, logo, mark, everything that we do. Yes. There's always a why behind it.
I think sometimes it's subconscious because you get designers straight out of school that they do the things in school because the professor tells them the why and why they should do these things, or like what design and art are different. But I do think subconsciously things become habit, things become muscle memory of why you do them, but you don't always reflect back on the why. So like, that's why I think like some young designers may not prepared to defend it. They just do it because it's a muscle that they've built up.
Yeah.
And so like, that was kind of why I asked that, was like, whether you have to help them reflect on it a bit more.
Yeah. I do think that is correct. I do think that there is a version of some of it is subconscious. Yes, some of the why is subconscious. And sometimes we do have to pull it out. I do think that's part of it. I think that is part of what branding and design is you're pulling out some of the gold nuggets, not just from your clients, but also from your design teams and your creativity. And that's part of the creative process, is pulling out some of those gold nuggets of like, where is some of that good stuff that we know is encapsulated here. And so I think that's just all part of the creative process of creating design, is like pulling out those gold nuggets. But I think that's part of why we have to create that narrative in our stylescape, is that we are building up the definition of the client's brand, and we're building up the why behind what we've created for them. The logo mark is the tip of the iceberg, but then you have everything below the surface of the messaging and what it means, and everything that is like holding up that tip of the iceberg, right? That is what your brand is like your logo mark and stuff is that tip of the iceberg, but then everything below the surface is the rest of your brand. And so that's what we have to build: the definition and the messaging and the why and the personality and the reputation and all that stuff. And so we have to help them see that there's more than just that tip of the iceberg. And so the rest of that story is what we tell in that presentation, so that they can understand what that tip of the iceberg actually means.
Yeah, that's great. I love that analogy. I saw a food pyramid when you were talking about the iceberg. You know, like we grew up with that false food pyramid. The discovery meeting is the grains at the bottom baseline, that they tell us we need to eat so much bread and carbs. And then you got like everything else built up. Yeah, for sure. And I think like helping clients understand that stuff that's under the surface is what helps them get to, okay, this is why your logo mark looks like this. Yep.
Because the messaging and the definition and all the rest of the brand elements that are below the surface are what culminate to this peak up here. To me, that's how you defend your artwork, is you go on the offensive.
Yeah. And I think that's what makes us VIP in the branding space, is because from start to finish, we're proactive about everything from writing our contracts, making sure all the deliverables are in there so it doesn't bite us in the butt later on, to in the discovery meeting, setting expectations, setting boundaries, and having only 2 rounds of edits per phase. Like everything is very proactive from the business side to the design side. And I think that like we just had talked about what makes a successful branding project successful. Today, Junior.
I didn't mean to laugh. My bad.
It's, you know, sometimes I stutter. But to kind of get us back on that, how to defend your creative works.
Like, what if that doesn't work? Right?
Yeah. What if that doesn't work? Hangs in the air.
What if going on the offensive does not work? Well, then I do what I love and I say all the time, is I lead with questions. So let's say they're like, I don't like this color palette. So I say, okay, in all of our brand presentations, we give them a large color palette. There's like 6 colors at least, right? And so then I start with, okay, which color on the color palette do you not like? Is it the blue? Is it the, and then I walk through and I ask specific questions. Is it the icon set that you don't like? And then again, like if it's our Stylescape presentation, I'll go through each concept and I'll ask specific questions. And then I'll say, is there anything you do like?
Yeah.
You know, like, is there something that's standing out to you that you do love? Or is there something that's standing out to you that, what about
you
messaging?
don't love?
Yeah.
I do think that sometimes, well, I know you're going to say people are usually the first to say the negative things.
Yes.
But a lot of people know what they don't want. They don't always know what they want. And that's
correct
in anything, relationships, whatever. I could get deep with it. When you're single, I'm married, everybody. When you're single looking for a man, I remember what I didn't want in a guy. I mean, I did write what I wanted, but that obviously took shape differently. But that's the same thing with design in our stylescapes is I think people know what they don't like. They don't like the messaging. They don't like the sharpness of it. It doesn't match how they want to come off to their people or like specific things like, I'm just not a pink person, that kind of thing. I think it's so much easier to know what you don't want most of the time than what you do.
Yeah.
And you finesse it very well.
Yeah. Thank you.
You finesse the pushback very well. No, I saw something recently where it's like, if you push on somebody, they'll naturally push back. But if they feel like you're walking with them in that process, they will move much better. So if I'm walking alongside somebody and I hook arms with them and we start walking forward, they will follow. If I go up to Ryan and I push him, he's going to constantly push back. And that's the thing at our agency. You want to feel like we are walking with you on this experience, and you asking questions in those meetings helps us walk alongside them.
Yes, Chelsea. Yes. Oh my gosh. That is literally the key. That is the key. 100% that is the key. Because if a client feels like you are butting heads with them, one, they're probably never going to hire you again because you've just created a contentious relationship, right? If they feel like you are going to argue with them and you're going to fight with them, they're going to be like, those guys suck to work with, right? And I don't want to work with them. Like they just
I don't want to pay somebody to fight.
No. Even if you are 100% right as the designer, even if the client is way wrong, has terrible ideas, whatever it is, they're never going to want to work with you. But if you can disagree with a client in a way that feels like you are in alignment with them, that you are collaborating with them, that you are just like what you said, Chelsea.
We're figuring out how do we get to that point together.
Yes, exactly. If you can do it in such a way that you feel like you are doing it together, you are solving the problem together. Mm-hmm. And the way that we do it at our agency is we lead with questions, we ask specifics, we say, okay, so tell me about why you don't like the color palette, tell me more about that. Or, oh, okay, so typeface, you don't love the typeface. So in our interactive mood board session, these were some of the typefaces that we said. To me, it looks like those. Does it not look like that to you? One of our copywriters told me the other day that I say the phrase, help me understand. And I never realized that I say that so much until he told me that. And now I notice it all the time because I say it all the time to our clients. Help me understand what you mean when you say blank, or help me understand when you say you don't like this typeface. Help me understand.
And that's such a good way of, it's not like claiming ignorance either. Like it's not a shameful way of saying that you don't get what they're laying down. No. But like, I do think from a client perspective, that language helped me. Like everyone wants to help others. And that's an easy way for them not to be like, you don't get what I said.
Yeah. Yeah. And the thing is, do I have to regularly eat a big serving of humble pie? Yes. Yes, I do. Yes, I regularly do. And does it taste nasty sometimes?
Yeah.
Yes. Yes, it does.
Mm-hmm.
But
does the check clear?
Yes, yes,
I was waiting for that. But
yes,
does my bank account look good?
Okay, I wasn't going to say that, but we have clients that have been with us for all 15 years of having our agency. And we have tons of clients that are repeat customers. And it's because we treat them with respect. We don't fight them. We give them our opinions. It's not that we don't ever share our opinions with them, but I do it with kindness and respect.
Yeah, we don't shove it down their throat.
No, but at the end of the day, I will say, I don't think that's a good idea, but this is your project. If you want to do that, that's fine. We will do that,
Or we say things like, I'm not just branding, but we're like, it's not best practice to do that.
Yeah.
But if that's what you want at the end of the day, like we give proof of why we stand by our thoughts on things. Or so like, it's not best practice to have too much in a logo mark because you're not going to see it on print or on merch or something. Like that's just an example, but like there's certain things like that we push back and stand by it. But
for sure. At
the end of the day, whatever gets it over the finish line.
Yes. I do think that is the other thing that we have to keep in mind. And I think we've talked about this before. But the other thing we have to keep in mind is what is a major thing and what is a minor thing. We are not doing brain surgery. None of the things that we are doing here at our firm is life and death. Nope. Not a single thing.
What's the battle? What's the war?
Yes. This is marketing. This is design. This is branding. No one here is going to die because of what we do. Right? So like...
that nobody will find out who dies because of it.
God. Chelsea, this is recorded. Oh my God.
We used to have so many workers.
Oh my God.
Little do they know. No.
Chelsea, I don't want the FBI to show up at my door, okay? Oh my God. They listen everywhere.
They're listening to this right now. My FBI's got access to my camera.
I know. They're looking at us. I'm just saying, just keep in mind that it is not life and death. Like, yes, give feedback, give pushback, do it with respect, do it with kindness, lead with questions, all these things that we're talking about. But like, do it in a way that's not contentious. Do it in a way that is like, you guys are on the same team. You're not enemies with your clients. You guys are after the same goal. You and the client are on the same team. And if you keep that in mind and keep that mentality, then you will get there, right? You're like defending the artwork. It reframes that conversation in a big way, right? Because then it doesn't become about me versus them. It becomes about us versus the problem.
Yeah. I think in that same line of thinking, it's important to think about what the repercussions are of not defending your work, because I think a lot of times as creatives, as people, we learn to defend ourselves and our decisions in our life and our work and our careers. Like that's not always our natural thing, especially as designers, creating artworks that are your babies, but then eventually you learn as you mature and you grow. And we've heard one of our designers, Kelsey Schofield, say like going from it being personal criticism of her pieces to being able to detach from it and finding solutions to problems. But I think you don't always think about what happens if you don't defend, if you just let that client run over you and you do everything that they ask and they end up with a project that they like, this is what I told you I wanted, but it doesn't actually work well in the wild. What do you think on that? Like letting a client do what they want. What are the repercussions of that kind of thing?
Well, when something like that happens, one, I would ask, like, why would the client even hire you then? Why would they hire an expert?
Yep.
Right? If they are basically just going to micromanage and art direct every little detail. And your job is not to be a doormat. Your job is to be the expert. And you are the expert. Even if you are fresh out of college, you still have a degree. And you still have more experience than the client does if your degree is in design or a related field. And so there's kind of that one thing. Then the other thing I would say is we are doing a project right now where the client, they are absolutely, what's the right word? They are
retentive. I just wanted to use that phrase.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably about right. Like, they are absolutely anal about every specific detail of their project, to the point of saying, left align this here, make it this font, this style, this size, right? And they are allowing no pushback from us. They are not allowing any sort of expertise from us at all.
I'm like, are you sure you didn't want to design this on your own with no web experience?
Yeah, that's the thing, is like, they're not allowing us any sort of conversation in this at all. And as we've continued on this project, which it's a big project, I'm realizing how outdated already the project looks. And there's things about it that I'm like, well, this could have been 80 times better, but because the client won't allow any of our expertise in the room, it's going to be a 4 or a 3 out of a 10. Like, we could have given them a 10, but they won't allow it. And this is one of those times where I said, majors and minors, I have pushed back as much as I can, and they are having none of it. And so this is one where we just take the money and
get it over the finish line.
Yeah. And I push back where I can, like in small instances where I can say, this doesn't follow your brand. And they say, okay. But then there's the majority of like 98% of the project, they are like, do this. And we just say, okay. So you have to choose your battles, and it's very dependent on the client. Honestly, it's just like, you kind of have to use your own discernment per project. Yeah. So don't be a doormat until you have to be. And then and then be a doormat.
And honestly, the more you do it, whether you're a freelancer listening to this or an agency, or even like from a client perspective of how to approach these type of conversations with experts like us, like, I think it's just important to know that it is constantly developing. And the more as a freelancer you do it, the more confident you are in those conversations and what you need to bow down to versus what you need to stand your ground on. And as an agency, I think it's huge just to walk with your client, not completely. I'm like, yeah, we want to be in charge and drive the truck, drive the train, but we're all trying to get to the same spot at the end of the day. I think that's just really what that mentality has to be, is like, you're on the defensive, but it's a conversation.
Yep. Keep that goal. You have the same goal as the client in mind. Keep that mentality. Exactly. Yeah. And you'll figure it out.
Yeah. So that's our little spiel on how to defend creative work from that designer perspective. And so if you like this podcast, please like, share, follow. If you want to ask us any questions, we would love to answer any questions that you guys might have or want to send us. So you can send it however you please, social, through our website, Agency Rocket website, or our email. So just feel free to contact us, and have a great day.
Bye, 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 bye.
Bye, bye, bye.